Welcome to Mindful Leadership, Transforming Lives, with your host, Singh. This is where leadership meets purpose, presence, and passion. In today's fast paced, high pressure world, we face a leadership crisis. Too often, teams are led by managers who lack empathy, clarity, and vision, leaving individuals uninspired, disconnected, and undervalued. But it doesn't have to be this way. Great leadership isn't born, it's built. The end game: empower your leadership, inspire the world. Every week, join me, your host Singh, as we tackle the gaps in leadership and life coaching head on, learning how mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and compassion can redefine success. This isn't just another podcast, it's a mission to fill the void left by ineffective leadership. And it's not just about leadership in business. Life coaching for leaders and new executives is at heart of this journey. Ready to rise above the noise and lead with clarity, purpose, and impact? Join a global movement dedicated to reshaping the future of leadership one mindful moment at a time. Let's begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Mindful Leadership Podcast on the Transformation Network. The podcast where we turn stress into strategy, overthinking into clarity, and overwhelm into momentum. I'm your host, Singh, the leadership coach who has watched teams and four new ways to talk to each other and somehow understand each other less for it. It is just you and me today. Pour something warm, put the phone face down. Yes, I see the irony. I'll come back to it. And let's spend the next half hour on one idea that I think is quietly costing teams more than almost anything else right now. So I want to open with a team that was in touch all day, every day, and could not have told you what they have actually decided that week. A while back, I worked with a leader running a marketing organization, Nadia. By every visible measure, her team was tight. They had a chat channel for everything, stand up every morning, a shared board that updated in real time. Two of them had an AI assistant drafting their docs and summarizing their meetings. So if you measured contact, messages, pings, syncs, threads, they were one of the most connected teams I'd ever seen. And they were quietly coming apart. Because a campaign had gone out the week before, half the team thought had been approved and half the team thought was still in draft. Nobody has decided to ship it. It had just sort of drifted out. In the wreckage, when I asked each person what they thought the team had agreed to, I got five different answers. Five from a team that had been talking to each other nonstop the entire team. What Nadia said to me is the line I keep returning to. She said, Singh, we are in constant contact and we never actually on same page. How is that possible? And there it is. The thing nobody warns you about when they sell you the tool. We assumed more communication would mean more alignment. For a great many teams, the opposite has happened. More channels meant more noise, and constant contact has quietly replaced the slower, harder thing it was supposed to enable: actual thinking together. Now, before I go further, I want to introduce two people because I don't want you to think this is a marketing problem or an idea problem. It is not. It is a connected team problem and it shows up everywhere. The second leader I'll bring in today, let's call him Marcus. Marcus runs an engineering team at a mid-sized software company. 8 people spread across 3 time zones, the kind of team that prides itself on shipping fast. Their tools are immaculate: tickets, threads, a beautiful board, an AI bot that posts a summary in channel after every call. Marcus told me the first time we spoke, we don't have a communication problem. We have communicate, if anything. Right? And he was right about the volume. Right? When he said we over communicate, if anything, he was right about the volume. He was completely wrong about the volume was buying him. Right? We'll get back what broke. And the third leader, Priya, a unit manager at a hospital, different world entirely. Nurses, shift changes, handoffs, a patient record system, a group chat the staff used to coordinate. You would think a hospital of all places would have alignment nailed down because the stakes are literally life and death. But Priya came to me because of a near miss, a medication timing that two shifts each assumed the other had handled. Nobody dropped the ball through carelessness. They dropped it through contact. Everyone had been messaging, everyone assumed the message had landed. We will get to that one too. So, three leaders: a marketer, an engineer, a nurse manager. Three completely different worlds, the exact same fracture running underneath all of them. That is what this episode is about. We introduced Team early in set 13, the framework for turning a room full of smart people into one wise decision. We revisited it once already. Today, I want to read the same four letter through a sharper lens because the world has gotten louder and faster and more collaborative since we started. And the discipline at the heart of this framework, the discipline of thinking together, not just talking constantly, has never been more endangered. So this is more necessary. So same four letters, same tagline, team. Together, everyone achieves mindfulness. Four letters, four moves, one promise that a team's wisdom does not come from how much it communicates, but from how mindfully it does. Let me take you through it. The way it reads when you're connected to everyone and aligned with no one, right? So take a mindful pause, the first letter, right? And in an always on team, the pause is no longer 30-second at the top of the meeting. It is entire missing ingredient. When teams were slower, the pause happened naturally, a gap between hearing something and responding to it. The gap is gone. The moment a thought forms, there is a channel waiting to receive it, and a norm that says fast is good and silence is suspicious. So nobody pauses, everybody reacts, and a team that only ever reacts never arises anywhere on purpose. It just gets carried by whatever was the loudest in the thread that morning. Now, to take a mindful pause in a constant contact world is to deliberately reintroduce the gap the tools removed. Nadia's team had never paused because they had never stopped. So I made them do the uncomfortable thing, right? Before the next campaign decision, no chat, no sync, no AI summary, one meeting, phones down, and one question on the table before everyone touched the work. What are we actually here to decide? And how will we know we have decided it? The second half mattered. It took them 11 minutes to agree on what decided even meant for them. Who says the word, where it gets written, how everyone knows it is final. 11 minutes. For a team in contact 16 hours a day, that tells you everything about what the contact had been hiding. Now, let me show you the same letter in Marcus' word, because engineers will tell you they are too rational for this, and they are not. Marcus's team made decisions the way a lot of fast teams do in threads. Someone would raise an architecture question in the chat, right? And at 9 in the morning, the 20 messages would fly back and forth across the three time zones. And by afternoon, the conversation had simply moved on. There was never a moment where someone said, okay, this is the decision. The decision accreted. It built up out of message fragments like sediment. And 3 weeks later, when two engineers built against two different versions of that decision, everyone was genuinely shocked because, as far as each of them was concerned, it had been discussed into death. So it had been discussed to death. It had never been once decided in single witnessed moment. So I gave Marcus same medicine I gave Nadia in a dialect engineer's respect. I said, a decision that lives only in a thread is not a decision. It is a rumor with good format. For your next consequential call, take it out of the thread. 15 minutes, live cameras, or in a room, and state the question and let it land. And before anyone leaves, one person writes the single sentence that says, this is what we choose, and reads it loud so silence can be tested. Marcus raised it. He said it felt slow. Then, first time they ran it, an engineer who had been quietly building toward a completely different assumption said, wait, that's not what I thought we agreed. 15 minutes, caught 3 weeks. He stopped calling it slow. The practice for the T is this: for next real decision, pull out of channels entirely and give it one undivided pause. Synchronous, present, phones away. and define before you start. The single sentence that will mean this is decided. A team that never pauses cannot tell the difference between talking about a thing and choosing it. Take a mindful pause because constant contact is not presence. Presence is the thing you have to choose against the current of every tool built to you for reacting. The second letter, evaluate biases and assumptions. And the bias that thrives in a hyper connected team is a quiet one. The assumption that because something was said, it was heard and agreed to. Now, in a small room, you could see misunderstanding on people's face. Now, the conversation is spread across threads, time zones, half read messages, and silence reads as consent. Someone posts a plan, three people thumbs up it for reasons that nothing had to do with each other. Two people never saw it, and the team proceeds as if it has alignment. It has the appearance of alignment, assembled out of fragments, and nobody checks because checking feels slow, and the team prides itself on being fast. Now, to evaluate biases and assumptions in this world is to refuse to mistake activity for agreement. Nadia ran straight into this. When we tracked back the campaign that drifted out, the approval turned out to be a single ambiguous message. Looks good to me. From someone who later said he meant the layout, not the decision to ship. Everyone else has stacked their own assumptions on top of his comment until it became a green light nobody had actually given. But here is where I want to bring Priya back in because this letter is where hospital stories lives. It is the one that should make all of us sit up. The near miss on Priya's unit came down to exactly one assumption. That because something had been written in a hand of chat, it had been received and understood by the next shift. A nurse going off the shift had posted that a particular medication was still pending, meant she meant it as please pick this up. The incoming shift saw the message, land in the channel, registered that the situation was being communicated, and read the very existence of message as evidence that it was handled. The message wasn't a handoff, it was a notification. A notification dressed up as a handoff is one of the most dangerous things in any organization, hospital or not. So I gave Priya's team the same medicine I had given Nadia's team, a question to run before any handoff or decision. Their thought was settled out loud, person to person. Who here believes we have agreed to something or handed something off? And can we each say in our own words what something is and who now owns it? On Priya's unit, the first time they ran it at a shift change, the off-going and oncoming nurse said two things completely different about who owned medication. 2 minutes of awkward overlap at the change of shift. The awkward overlap is the whole point. It is a cost of safety, and it is a rounding error compared to the cost of assumption. So, the practice for E is this before you act on an agreement or a handoff, have each person state in their own words, not a thumbs up, not a sounds good, not presence of a message in the channel, the actual sentence and who owns the next move. If the sentence do not match, you do not have alignment. You have a pile of separate assumptions wearing costumes of consensus. So evaluate assumptions because the most expensive failures on a connected team are two disagreements. They are agreements that never actually happened. The third letter is aligned with values. And here, speed does something subtle. It lets a team optimize for responsiveness and quietly forget what it was being responsive toward. Now, when everything is fast, the team starts measuring itself by velocity. Did we reply quickly? Did we unblock fast? Did we ship on time? Now, these feel like virtues, and they can be, but they are not values. They are tempo. And in a team that confuses tempo for values, will move very quickly in whatever direction the last message points, including directions it would never have chosen if it had stopped to ask whether the direction was right. So, to align with values in a high speed team is to insist that question should we keeps it seat at the table next to the question we can do it fast, right? Question should be keeps. Now, Nadia's team had been so focused on keeping up the campaign, which drifted out and had never been asked the simplest question: did it actually represent what they stood for? It was fine, it was fast, it was on trend, but when they finally held it against their standard value that they would never chase a trend in a way that felt cheap to their own core audience, three people admitted that they had felt off about it whole time and never said, because saying so would have solved the train. So before their next launch, they ran a 90-second values check out loud, no expectation. Does this reflect what we say we stand for? Or just what we could turn around quickly? A junior designer, Jamal, used it at to finally voice the discomfort he had been sitting on for weeks. He was right. They reworked the concept, it promoted better, it performed better, and it was theirs. Now, Marcus team hit the same wall from engineering side. And I want you to hear it because values can sound soft until you watch it cost real money. Now, his time has a quiet value they had never written down, but absolutely hit. They did not ship things that would wake a teammate up at 2 a.m. They cared about on call human at the other end. But under deadline pressure in the rush of the thread, they had started cutting corners on the boring, unglamorous reliability work because shipping the visible feature was fast and hardening. The system was slow. Now, velocity had quietly become the value. The on call human had quietly stopped being one. So Marcus added one spoken question before any ship decision: are we shipping this because it is right or because it is fastest thing in front of us? And who pays for it at 2 a.m.? The first time a senior engineer said plainly, I will pay for it. I will be on the pager. And the trust of person carrying the pager, that is not slow. That is a team remembering what its speed was supposed to be. Now, the practice for A is before any fast moving decision goes live, pause for values question, spoken aloud. Are we doing because it is right or only because it is quick? Make it morale, make it normal, make it expected. A team that only ever asks how fast will eventually move at full speed straight off a cliff it never paused to see. So align with values because speed is wonderful servant and a catastrophic master. And only your values know which one it is today. Now, for the last fourth letter, mindfully present insights. Now, in an age of infinite channels and AI generated summaries, presenting mindfully means resisting the temptation to let tools do the part of work that was supposed to be human. Now, when a team can generate a polished recap of any meeting in seconds, there is a quiet drift. People stop doing the hard work of deciding what meeting meant. The summary captures everything that was said and therefore communicates nothing about what mattered. 40 bullet points land in the channel, everyone scans, nobody absorbs. The insight that should have changed how the team thinks gets buried in a tidy, comprehensive, useless wall of text. So, to mindfully present insights in this world is to do one thing tools cannot do for you: decide. As a human who was in the room, what the single most important thing was said and who said it. Now, Nadia's team had fallen into the recap trap completely. Every meeting produced an auto summary nobody read. So I asked them to add one human sentence to top of every one, written by a person, not generated, answering, if you remember only one thing from this, remember this. That sentence took thought. It could not be automated because it required judgment about importance. And importance is exactly what a summary of everything erases. And Marcus is the cautionary tale here, right? Because his team had the most sophisticated tooling of the three, and it had hurt them the most. The bot posted flawless transcripts, summary after every single call, 40 bullets every time, perfectly accurate. And because it was there, nobody felt responsible for saying what the call had actually meant. The decision drowned in the documentation of decision. When I asked one of his engineers what was the last big architecture meeting that concluded, he screamed the bot summary for a full 30 seconds and then said, honestly, I have to reread the summary. I had captured everything and conveyed nothing. So Marcus made a rule that sounds almost too small to matter. Whatever the bot generates stays, but a human, a person who can actually, who was in the room, writes one sentence at the very top. The one thing changes is not a summary, a verdict. The bot keeps the record. The human carries the meaning. Within a month, his engineers told me they had stopped scrolling. They read one sentence and they knew where the team stood. So the practice for word M is this: whatever your tools generate, you write the headline yourself. One sentence, decided by a human who was present, naming the single thing that actually matters. Put it at the top, above all captured details. The detail is for record, the sentence is for the team. Now, mindfully present insights. Because in a world that will summarize everything for you, the leadership act is choosing what counts. And that is one job you're not allowed to delegate. Pause the podcast for a moment if you can. If you're driving, just hold these in your head and come back to them later. No decisions while merging. Now, bring to mind one team decision from the last 2 weeks, one where there was plenty of communication and somehow less clarity for all of it. Right? Go through the 4 steps. Take a mindful pause. Ask, did the decision ever get one undivided moment of team's attention? Or did it just accumulate across the channels? And notice the difference between discussed and decided. Now evaluate options. Pick one person who was involved. In your head, finish the sentence as you believe they would. What we agreed to was. Now finish it as if you believe it. Do the sentence match? If you're not sure, you have found the gap. Align values. Ask, did we choose this because it was right or because it was fastest thing in front of us? Sit with any honest answer that makes you wins. And then mindfully present insights. Write one sentence you wish had been at the top of every message about the decision. The thing that, if everyone can held it, would have kept you on the same page. 3 minutes, one bloody decision, the whole framework, aimed not at communicating more, but at the harder act of actually being aligned. So there are three traps before we close. The first mistake, mistaking contact for connection. The team is in touch all day and concludes it must therefore be aligned. Contact is volume, connection is shared understanding. A team can have all of the first and none of the second. And the constant pinging will hide the gap right up until something drifts out the door unapproved, or a medication gets missed at shift change, or two engineers build against two different truths. Pitfall number two, treating silence as agreement. In a in a fast channel, nobody objecting feels like everybody's agreeing. It is not. Often it is two people who did not see the message and three who are too busy to push the back. Now, read silence as a question, never as a yes. And then the third pitfall, letting the tools do the thinking. The summary writes itself. The assistant drops the dog. The board updates on its own. And the team slowly forgets that judgment about what matters was never the tool's job. Automate the capture, never automate the meaning. So here is your challenge before next week. Take one real team decision coming up this week, just the first letter. Before it leaves in any channel, give it a mindful pause. A single undivided moment, synchronous phones down, and agree out loud on the one sentence that will mean this is decided. Then watch how the unusual back and forth simply never needs to happen. That is it. One decision, one real pause, one agreed sentence. You'll be surprised how much your team's communication was just the sound of people trying to reach as alignment they never stopped long enough to build. Now, if this episode is presenting on something, if you are reorganizing that your team is busier and more connected than ever and somehow see less sure of where it actually stands, that is exactly the terrain that purpose factor assessment is built to map. Because a team that drifts is really a team that lacks tools. Nadia had every tool. Marcus had the best tooling of anyone I work with. Priya's hospital has systems built over decades. It is a team whose leader has not anchored clearly enough in what the team is for. And a team can only be as aligned as person at its center is clear. So when the leader knows the purpose, the constant contact starts serving it. When the leader is unsure, every channel just amplifies the fall. Team has never been about communicating more. It has always been secretly about communicating mindfully, pausing on purpose, checking that agreement is real, aligning to values of core velocity, and saying the one thing that matters instead of capturing the 40 that do not. That's all for today. You're listening to Sing on Mindful Leadership, Transforming Lives on the Transformation Network. See you next week.
Thank you for watching Mindful Leadership Transforming Lives. With me, your host, Singh. We are honored to have you join us on this journey to explore the transformative power of mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and authentic leadership. Tune in every week on transformationtalkradio.com at noon Pacific on Tuesdays, where we will continue to explore how mindful leadership can create a ripple effect of positive changes in your life and lives of those you influence. This show is dedicated to helping you lead with purpose, presence, and passion. Whether you're navigating the complexities of business, building strong connection with your team, or striving to make a meaningful impact in the world around you. To learn more about the show, access additional resources, or dive deeper, visit singpowerupcoach.com. Remember, leadership isn't just about what you do, it's about who you are. Let's continue to transform lives together, one mindful moment at a time. See you next week.